Hello everyone, welcome to today's Q&A with Jonathan Pickup. As you know, Jonathan Pickup is a trained architect from New Zealand and worked in UK with more than 30 years of experience. He has been writing and producing Vectorworks manuals and providing customer support for more than 20 years. His company, ArchonCAD, is the premier provider of third-party manuals and training resources for Vectorworks. He offers monthly webinars and maintains the Visual Knowledgebase for Vectorworks. So don't forget to check out this website, ArchonCAD.com. And I want to show you where you can find Vectorworks and actually the entire line of Vectorworks product at Novedge.com. And for this week only, we have some savings, a coupon for Form Z ending today midnight, and starting today, it's already active. You can save 10% on new Vectorworks licenses and for the entire week. So mark that coupon VW521 and, you know, use it if you want an extra 10% discount. It's not a bad deal. Just type it in at checkout. And you can always call our support and get help with more complex product configuration. And now let me see if Jonathan is ready. I will.
Yep, I'm here.
Perfect. I'm going to share your screen. Okay.
Where's
you
it gone?
should be prompted. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Cool. So welcome everybody. So the questions we've had today are around, let me just hide some of the stuff. I don't want to show all these bits and pieces. One of the questions I've had is around site modeling. So there's lots of site modeling questions today. So why don't we start with site modeling, and we'll start with how do you create a site model? So someone was asking, how do I create a site model from a topography or a topographic file that I get from a surveyor? So I've got a couple here that I thought I could import. Now, it's been a while since I've used these, so I'm not quite sure what's in them, but I know that this one here has three-dimensional contours. So I'll drag that in. Now, it's a DWG file, and one of the tricks you can do with Vectorworks, if you want to import a DWG, DXF, PDF, image file, or basically anything that Vectorworks can import, you drag and drop it into Vectorworks. So I've got it here in a folder. This is on a Macintosh. The same thing works on a Windows machine. And I drag it into Vectorworks, which is just back here. Let go of my mouse button. I then get an option to import this dialog box. So here it is here. Do I want to use the detected units? It thinks that it's meters, which might be right. So where I come from, surveyors always use meters and architects use millimeters. So it's usually a sort of a rough guide. In American, I tend to use feet decimal normally. That usually works for me. But this has actually detected the units and it says that it's meters. So I'll go ahead and I'll import that and I'll just see what we've got. Okay, so what have we got? We've got a series of polygons. This is a 3D, is it a 3D polygon? These are not 3D polygons, these are only 2D polygons. You can see when I turn the view, they're still lying flat on the ground. If they were 3D polygons, I could use them straight away to build my site model. If they, let's go back and we'll select everything, we'll delete that. Let's drag that back in again and see whether I've got some options. It does say 3D contours there. So let's have a look here and we'll go to advanced properties and we'll see whether I've got some advanced properties that are causing this to appear as 2D only. So I'm going to go to center first. My conversion is all 3D and that's what caused them to be 2D only. They're going to fit to 1 to 48 and you can click here and change the scale. I'll make them 1 to 200. I'm not going to map these, but it's possible for you to convert the mapping or to choose a mapping set. And you can tell Vectorworks, when I input all of these, put the letter S in front of all my classes, S for survey, and that will then put all the classes together, put the letter S right in front of them, and it'll make it easy for me to find them. You'll notice over here on my navigation palette that I'll get a letter S, and then you'll get an arrow and it'll create a bunch of survey files. We can play with the graphic attributes. We can blocks or symbols in AutoCAD. We can look at objects, and if we find dimensions, we can explode those, and we've got the purge set up here so that we can purge all unused elements. So if there are any unused blocks, we can purge all those. Now, when you import these drawings, when you import a survey drawing, just notice that I'm currently importing this into a completely blank file. Oh, sorry, it's not a completely blank file. It's a template, but it should be, you should use a completely blank file, because if you need to scale anything in ArchiCAD, sorry, Vectorworks. So if you need to scale anything in Vectorworks, what we need to do is we need to scale the entire drawing. If you've got a template like I've got at the moment, it will scale everything, including all my symbols. It'll scale my hatches. It'll scale everything. So you want to be very careful when you're importing from a surveyor or importing DWG or DXF drawings. Always import into a completely blank file. Now, mine's not completely blank. I've actually got some symbols for placing information, but I'm going to import those, and I'm going to go OK, and there it is. Import was successful, and there's a distance here, and you'll notice that my dimensions are offset slightly. And one of the things I want to make sure of is that I actually dimension this area here. I'm going to use my dimension tool and dimension it to check to make sure it's the right dimension. Now, if, for example, this was out of scale and I needed to change the dimension, if I chose the option to modify scale objects, I can scale the entire drawing and make sure it's correct. So if it does come out the wrong size, the first thing you have to do is to scale this so it's the right size. So let me just go through how we scale it, because it is really important that before you start creating your site models, before you start drawing on this, you get it exactly correct. So let's have a look at our current distance. So this distance here, from this corner here to this corner here, let's make that, maybe that should be 40 feet. So I'll make it 40 feet. Now you'll notice that at the moment, I've got scale entire drawing turned on, but it's gray. I can't untick it. This is a big issue, and it's because I have nothing selected. Now what it will do is it'll look through my resource manager, and it will rescale all of my resources to match the scaling ratio. Now 40 feet is 12 meters. It's going to make this site much, much smaller, and it's going to scale all my symbols. I'm going to make it 25 meters because I can't do the mathematics very easily. I'll make it 25 meters. That'll make it about half the size. So all my symbols, all of my hatches, they'll all be half the size they are at the moment. Now, are you sure you want to do this? Because it's going to affect all objects, including resources such as hatches and symbols. So this is a really big issue to start with, getting these things correct. And there's my site model. You can see it's way up in the air. There it is there. And because I've imported with the topographic information, it's already got the correct elevation, which is, this one is 178 meters above sea level. Now I do tend to leave my site model at that height. Where's it gone? Back to a plan view, there it is. I do tend to leave my site model at that height. Did I just change that, did I? No. Yeah, there it is. I want to make sure I didn't move it too far. Why do I leave them at that elevation? Because that's the true elevation the survey gave me. So someone asked a question about how do we make a site model? Someone's asked a question, how do you locate the site in world coordinates? It doesn't move away from the page center and course. So one of the options, Ramon, when I imported it, one of the options was to center that information. Let's just go back to the importing. We import this. Let's go import. So location. So center first import. Now what it does do when you choose this option is it actually moves the location of the file. So it moves, this thing just here is the location, is the 0 of my file. Vectorworks will move the 0 of the file so that your information appears in the middle, and it removes that problem of the page center and your information being a long way from the page center. So that's what I tend to do. So you can see here that it'll center the imported file on the internal origin, and then it will preserve the imported coordinate values by shifting the user origin. So what it does is it moves the user origin so that your objects stay within the good area of Vectorworks, removing those problems that you may have had. So let's cancel those. So does that answer your question, Ramon? Cool. So let's have a look. So we've got 3D polygons, and I can use these 3D polygons to create my contours. But I can also use other objects. Another object I use a lot is this object here, the stake object. So we think that this contour line here is at 178 meters. So let's get the stake object. I'll make this 178 m for meters. And then I can just place some more of these. I'm going to make those, I don't like the triangle, I'm going to make it a cross. So we think the contours carry on out here. We've got some council and some Google Maps, and it shows the contours carrying on, but the survey didn't go out that far. So we know we've got some contours out there. And we also think that some go this way as well. I'll leave one side alone. What about this one here? What elevation's that? It's 178.5. So back to my stake object, 178.5 m. So you can put extra ones of those. The other object you can use to create 3D contours, or sorry, to create a site model, is a 3D locus. Here it is. Here was a 3D locus. So I can create I can use a 3D locus as well as all of the other objects, and I can use a 3D locus to create points. Now at the moment it's hard to see my 3D locus because I think I've got rendering turned on. Let's make it wireframe. So there's my locus there, and it's at 0. This should be 179 meters. But one of the things I like about the stake object instead of the 3D locus is that I can actually see the height of my stake object, and I can't see the height of my locus. So there are three objects you can use to create your site model: 3D contours, stake objects, or 3D loci. I'm going to select my object. Select all of my stake objects, select all of my 3D loci, select all of my 3D polygons. Now just be careful, when I select all my 3D polygons, it also selects the boundary, which has also come out as a 3D polygon. So I'm going to go back to my selection tool, shift click on the boundary object, so that's no longer selected. Otherwise that would be a site source object, and it would affect my site, and I don't want that to happen. So once you've got these and you've got them selected, remember the 3 types: loci or locus, 3D locus, stake objects, or 3D polygons. You can then create your site model. AEC on the menu bar, terrain, and create site model from source data. So I've been creating source data at the moment, not a site model. And the types of source data: 3D loci, 3D polygons, stake objects. Now I didn't mention point clouds because I haven't got one, but you can use a point cloud to create a site model, which would be quite cool. So how do we want to make it? We want to make a site model. We can keep our source data, but if you don't keep your source data, it'll put it inside your site model and it'll always be there anyway. Maximum elevation, that's good. Minimum elevation, that's good. If you end up with a minimum elevation which is quite low, like 0, it means one of your objects is at the wrong elevation. So let's make, I don't want to make one of those. I was going to show you, but it's not worry about it. what's my contour interval? Well, I'd like my contours to be, we're in meters still, so I'm going to make them 250 millimeters, which is about 10 inches. 10 inches apart. Every 4 is going to be a major. What I'll do later, I'll swap to feet and inches, and we'll go through all this, go through these settings again. I can choose to have site modifiers on the same layer as the site model, or all layers, which can be tricky because you can accidentally put one in another layer. So I'm just going to leave it as all of those. 2D display. So under 2D display, I tend to make sure that my graphic properties are using classes. And I've got here classes that I've imported already. So this is my template. And I've got classes for site, existing major, site contours, proposed major, site contours, existing minor, and proposed minor. By putting these different parts on classes allows me to turn the contours on and off when I don't want to see them. So for example, I can swap between showing minor contours and major contours to just showing major contours, which can be really handy depending on your viewport scale. And they also control the graphic style as well. So that's the 2D. The 3D display, I've got proposed only. I've smoothed my mesh out. If I say mesh smoothing, it looks like this with all the little facets. We can smooth that out. We can show 3D contours if you want, totally up to you. I've always had trouble putting the geo image texture on as well, so I'm not going to cover that today. Now you'll notice that because of my choices, my contours are much further out on this side than they were on the other side. Let's just send that to the back. You can see that was the original contours. Had I not added those extra points out here, I wouldn't have a site model that goes out to that extent. The extent of your site model is based on the extent of your source data. So for example, you can see that my source data starts here. That was the end of my contour. It goes to that point, that was a contour, goes to the edge here, that was the edge of a stake object, that was the edge of a stake object there, another stake object there, and my 3D locus was out here. And you'll notice that this corner, my site model doesn't go all the way to my property because I have no data in this corner. Let's have a look at that in 3D. We'll just go Control 6, and that will get me to see the entire thing. So there's my site model. So do we have any questions about how I created the site model? So there's the three types, the 3D polygons. Now, if you're going to end up with 2D polygons, you're going to have to find a way to make those 2D polygons into 3D. Otherwise, you can't use them as contours. There is a command here called survey input, and there's a command there to convert 2D polys to 3D source data. Okay, so how do you lay down the road on top of this? Glad you asked. So how do we put a road on that? We need a road tool, and we've got one here called a roadway polygon. This is my choice. This is my roadway of choice. Now, somebody did ask, how do you cut a path that follows the topography? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little footpath that follows this, and I'm also going to make a road that cuts through. So let's do the polygon preferences. How wide is my footpath? It's only 4 feet wide, 1200 millimeters. It's 50 millimeters thick or 80 millimeters thick. It's got no curve, so we'll give it 0 and 0. And we're going to create a pad for a site model, and I can put classes for these. So I can put my grade limits on there. But first of all, let's just talk about site modifiers. So let's create a pad, and I'm going to make this footpath follow this contour line. And there's my polygon. So first of all, that's my path. How wide is it? 1200 wide. Quite wide. I'm just going to make it less than that. I'll make it 3 feet wide. And you might notice that it's not really smooth around these corners. Now, because I used the roadway polygon, I can go back to my reshape tool, and I can reshape this. I can add points. I can delete points if I want. I don't want to extend those at the moment. Now, I'm going to keep getting this until I send this object to the stations of my, so it's called send stations to surface. It's over here. At the moment, my footpath or my curb is on the ground. If I look at this in 3D, you can see there's my path. It's on the ground. It's flat, totally flat. And I'm going to use this option here to send stations to surface, and I'll send them to the surface of my site model. That's the spacing between my stations. Now let's have a look. Now we should find that my road is following my, there it is, my footpath is now following, or my roadway is now following my site. This one here is jumped up a little bit. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to smooth this out so that this follows my road or follows my contour. So let's just double click on that again. Where's my Reshape tool? So I'm going to smooth it out. I'm going to smooth that out, that corner out, and then I'm going to convert some of these corners to arcs. And I want my radius to be around about 5 feet, 1500 millimeters. So I click on that one, it turns that one, click on that one, click on that one, and now I'm going to move those around using this first mode until they sort of follow my contours. And you might have to have a couple of goes to get them to be as smooth as you want. And let's convert that one as well. So I've now converted to straight lines and arcs. Oh, there's another one there. Let's get rid of that one. And it makes it, you know, you can make it really nice. You can make it really smooth. You can also get rid of points if you don't want them. So get rid of that point, maybe get rid of that one. And it's made it quite smooth. So again, I'm going to go send stations to surface. And the next thing I'm going to do, I don't know if anyone noticed when I did this, but I had a bit sticking out of the ground down here. There was a bit that stuck out of the ground. Now you can't make this road slope. This path can't slope, but what you can do is you can either set it higher or lower than the site model. So we can use things like move in 3D. We can change the Z value here. We could make it -100 and set it down a little bit. So it's now inside my site model. I've told it to create pads. I've told it to create pads for the site model, but I haven't made grade limits. Grade limits tell Vectorworks how much of the site should be affected by this change. And you can see now there's a grade limit goes around. So this object is a pad and it will cut into my site, and this is how far that will be extended. So how far my cut will go. If I update my site model and we change the site model to display proposed only, you can see now that my contour line has been cut to go around the back of my path. If I select my path again and I change the offset to just, should we make it half of that, 12 inches. Okay, right click, let's update that again. And you can see this contour now runs around the edge of my path again, but a lot closer. Let's have a look at that. So what we've got now is we've got a little bit of cut at the back of my path. And so Vectorworks has modified my site. Now somebody did ask about cut and fill calculations. I can't remember where that was right at the beginning. So in order to put this path on, how much site or how much soil have I had to move? There's an option here for the cut and fill calculations. Let's click on that. And Vectorworks has now calculated that I need to cut 2.2 cubic meters of earth, and I need to have a fill volume of nothing. And now let's change to units. And I'll change to feet and inches. So volume will be volume, feet and inches, square feet, cubic feet, cubic yards, that's what I want. So let's update our cut and fill calculations. So there's 2.9 cubic yards, 2.99, so nearly 3 cubic yards, no fill. So I now know how much soil I have to move around to get that to work down. So let's start going through the questions. I've done the road, laying the roadway down on top, I think. You already have the contour lines and creating just the points. So if you're creating it from just points, it's basically the same. You just put stake objects on top of all the contours. So if you import it and it's 2D only, you put stake objects down for all of those points. So one of the things I did do, because what I used to get a lot of was I would get from the surveyor across, and I'd get some text, and it would be, you know, in meters, it might be 25.450 meters. What's some I've had lately in feet? I'm trying to think what this is in feet. So I need to put some contours on here. I need to know site model settings, 3D display. Let's put some contour labels on. Okay, what's that? 580 feet. Okay, now I've got an idea. 584 feet, basically. So this one here, so if we had text that was 584.20 feet, you quite often get this situation where you've got a whole bunch of these lying around. And the challenge you've got is, how do you get these to the right position? Select both of those. Let's move that up here. How do you get these at the right, how do you get your 3D locus at the right point? If you use the locus tool, like this one, you have to put the locus in using orthogonal. So you put in the locus, then you'll find that maybe sometimes the locus doesn't appear because of the wrong render settings. So there's my locus there. Then I have to manually lift that to the right elevation. So that can be a bit of a hassle, which I don't like very much. So what I tend to do is I made myself a little tool, which if you're a subscriber, you can get this off my website, which is the 3D locus from the 2D text. And I made this so that it would be quicker to place those. So what I'd do is I'd go 3D locus. So I click once for the 3D locus. I click once for the text. I click for the locus, click for the text, click for the locus, click for the text. And it grabs those, it grabs the text from here and it locates these locus points at the right elevation. Ramon, you must have this already, don't you? It's really quick to put all those in. Let's have a look. So 5-inch increments or 2-inch increments. I'm sorry, I don't understand. Yes, that's what I get the most. They're not 3D. All right. I'm struggling to understand some of the questions. So it looks like someone's writing part of a question, then hitting enter, and then writing another part of the question, and other questions are coming in between those. So let's just go back to this. So we've done the cut and fill. We've looked at that. Was there other people that wanted to do another type of road? Or there was one other sort of road I wanted to do. So I'm going to go back to this object here, back to that view, and I'm going to modify that again. And I'm going to take this end of it, and I'm going to make this end here come up the site. And this one is going to go over there. So we want to walk around the site and come up here, and we're going to send stations to surface again using the existing, and then we'll update our site model. Now this time you might notice that the ground here, that this is not going as smoothly as you might want. And you also notice one here has gone under the site. Maybe we didn't want that one to go under the site. So what you can do is you can move just here, you can move station points, and you can look at each station point, and you can see how each station point has its elevation. And you get here and you can drop that station down by, let's say, let's take away 12 inches. We'll drop that down a little bit. And then we can go to the next one and we'll drop that one down by 12 inches as well. The next one, we'll drop that down by 6 inches. In order to see the results, we need to make sure that we go to right click and update our site model again. And it'll recalculate the site model and it'll redo all the cut and fills calculations as well. And you can see now how it sits down inside the site. Now, if you're doing a road or a driveway, you can do the same thing with a driveway. Again, I quite like using the polygon. There are other ones that we can use. If we go back to here, the two that I like to use are the Roadway Polygon and the Roadway Custom Curve. And the custom curve doesn't give us the same kind of abilities to make all these changes and to get it to follow the site, but it does make a site modifier, and it is very flexible in terms of how wide the road is or how narrow it is or whether it's got edges shown or not shown. This path that I've created, it's the constant width all the way along. I can't change that. I can't make it wider or narrower, but if I did want to make a portion that was wider, I would cut I'd cut my roadway and I'd substitute it with a bit of custom curb, which I could then change the width of. Okay, Barbara, I think it's time we started going through some of these questions, making sure we've got them all. So I'm going to get rid of some of these. So Douglas, I've answered the question, haven't I? How do I cut a path following the topography? And Flavio, have I answered your question about creating site models? Okay, Douglas says yes, he's answered that. Yes, thanks, so we've done that. I'd like to know more about site modeling. Yep, so that's done. I'm not comfortable covering site design using Google SketchUp connection for the site. You can export. Is there an export we can do? Where's KML? If you export KML, you can import that into Google Earth, but you need to know very accurately the contour or the location of your site. And I haven't got that information set up, so I don't want to show that. Have I done my cut and fill calculations enough, Elena? Is there a way to connect the pathway that is up from the surface? So, Elena, you've got a question about, is there a way to connect a path that is up away from the surface of contours in the back part to the surface where you have more fill rather than a cut area? You just lift its elevation. So if I lift the elevation of these ones, let's select that again. Let's go back to my back. So let's make that one plus 18. That should make it above the site. And let's update my site model. And that should have filled up that area underneath. So you can just do spot or station by station, and you can make them fill or cut. And you'll notice my contours are now all over the place. They follow this edge here, then they go underneath. If I had this on a class, we should really put this on a class called roadway. What have I got? Site, contours, paving. Oh, let's put it on surface. Maybe it already is. Maybe I can just turn it off. Site, paving, surface. Yep, there it is. So here, Elena, you can see that the contour runs the front of that path for a while, and then it crosses over. Now it's the back edge of the path. Now it goes around here as I've lifted up that cut and fill through there. But there are these important differences between the pad object or the three-dimensional modifier and the grade limits. That's this one here. So if you increase the grade limits, let's make that much wider again. Where's my roadway poly? Grade offset, let's make it 3 feet. And then update my site model again. That'll have an effect on the cut and fill calculations. So you see there's more cut and fill needed. Here's the fill volume. If I then go back to that roadway again, and let's make it 1 foot. And we'll update our site model again. So there's substantially less fill volume because there's not as much area to fill in here, because this blue line is the edge of my modifying. So nothing is modified beyond that. Cut and fill calculations, I've answered that. Yes, I've answered that. How to create roads, footpath. Yeah, I think I've done that. I've done that partly, Flavio. What I haven't done is the custom curve, which I quite like. But the custom curve goes in one direction. The slope is going in one way. So once you've done that slope, you can't make that slope follow the contours. You can send it. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's nothing here that says send. There's nothing here about send stations to surface. And so what you might find is this is on the ground, and you need to make sure that this is to the surface of the site model. We can do terrain and send to surface to get that at the correct elevation. There is the elevation there. It's now sitting on my site model. There's a rise, 0 inches. You have to calculate that rise. You don't, Vectorworks doesn't do that for you. You have to calculate it. But the polygon, this roadway custom curve, is very flexible in that you can then start to modify it with the Reshape tool. So I can grab hold of that and I can pull that back to here. I can pull this corner in. I can pull that corner out or in. I can also add extra vertices. And so you can make a road which is quite flexible. And also you can use the Reshape tool to turn parts of that back on. And there's no handle through there, but you can see I can make a curve that goes right around the edge. So it is really flexible. I haven't got time to cover all of my site modifiers in detail, but site modeling is really quite powerful. And I use, the site modifiers that you can use stake objects as a site modifier. You can use, where's it gone? I'm using a customized workspace at the moment, so let's go back to a standard one. I think Architect has the tool I'm looking for. Certainly Designer has the tool I use. There's another landscape tool which the Designer workspace has got called the grade object, and you can actually draw a grade object. I've got one here. These are grade objects and they're site modifiers. And you can just say to Vectorworks, I want these objects, back to plan view. So I want this object to go a certain distance or a certain slope. And then you can say, it's my grade object. Let's go to my settings. I want this to use, what are we using? We're using heights from the site model. It's really handy using heights from the site model because as you move it, it'll tell you the grade from this point down to that point, and it gives you the exact elevation at that point. But you can also change this to change site model, and then you can type in the elevations that you want for these. So let's make this one here 617. Let's pull that back to there. And let's update my site model. And it should change my grade in this area here. So if I make that, let's select that object. Sometimes it doesn't want to select that, so I have to use my J-click. let's take 500 mils off that one. And then we'll update our site model and just check our site model to make sure it's showing proposed only. That's what I needed to show. And let's update it. So you'll now notice that there's a bit of a dip in this area here as it's trying to calculate the grade going around there. And you can also put multiple grade objects in. So sometimes I put in a couple. And then we'll update the site model. And so you can see it's getting a little confused in this area. And that's where the site modifier, this one here, the grade limits, where you say, I don't want anything outside here to be affected. And that tends to make these work much better when you do that. So I've now got a bit of a dip in that area. It's not really smooth, but because you can see there's one of my grade objects there and there's another one, and it's just a little confused about this little lump in the middle. But the grade objects are quite a cool one to do. Let's get rid of some of those. Again, Vectorworks likes to select the site model first, so let's select that. We'll delete that one. And then it seems to remember that there's other things there. So let's update that. So you can use grade objects, you can use hardscape objects, stake objects, you can use roadways to modify, plus you've got all these site modifiers. You can make a contour or a pad with retaining edge. And if you want to cover these things, this is a whole session just on site modifying. How are we getting on for time, Barbara? We've still got plenty of time. Let's have a look at our questions again. I think, does everyone think we've done enough on site modeling and we want to have a look at the subdivision tool? I wouldn't mind looking at the subdivision tool, Barbara.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so luckily I'm working on my 3D modeling course at the moment. And I've got some subdivision stuff to play with. What do we want? We want imperial, don't we? Cool. Okay, so you can't see any subdivision objects here, but let's look at subdivision objects. So subdivision objects are a different technology. It's a technology licensed to Vectorworks, and it comes from somebody else. It comes from the people that made the Pixar movies. They're the ones who designed subdivisions. If I double click on the Edit Subdivision tool, I get the ability to make a new subdivision. So this is the subdivision, which is a circle. I can make a ring, which has got a hole in it. I can make a triangle, or I can make a square. Now I'm going to use the square because what I want to do is I want to build a little tent area over these 4 columns. So let's go, how big does it need to be? I forget what the size it needs to be. So I'm just going to click OK and then place it here. So there's my subdivision. Now it doesn't look much at the moment. Yeah, I agree with that. When I click on one of these dots, one of these nodes, I get the ability, let's go back to my subdivision tool. When I click on that, I get this little dagger, my 3D dagger. The dagger allows me to drag it in one direction like that, or in that direction, and it's going up the paving, or I can lift it up in 3D like this. It's just, you can see I can lift it up in 3D, make it go in and out, or I can twist it. So I can twist that object. Now all I'm doing at the moment is twisting that dagger. If I select this edge, I get the same type of thing. So I get the ability to twist that. Again, I get the ability to twist that edge. I can rotate that edge, but you won't see the difference. And there's another dagger in here. And let's just turn my view around. I can also rotate the dagger in that view. So I can rotate my object. So you get this ability to do rotations. Better undo that. We can rotate, we can stretch, we can move, and we can move all of those points. An important thing is, if I want to connect those 4 points to these 4 columns, it would be difficult if I started with a circle. So there's my circle object. And so if I grab that little dot there, click on that dot in the middle, it's turquoise to start with. And then we go to the top of that column, and then we grab this one, that turquoise dot, put it on the top of this column. I'm just using my Z key to zoom in. And you notice that missed it, so let's go back over here. I want to snap to the top of that one. Z key, I want to go to that point there. This one, we'll stick that one up on the top of that one, and this one here. Now, the problem is that I didn't move the inner part of my circle, so it's really difficult to do. I'm going to move this one now. Let's grab that turquoise one, we'll put it up there. And then we'll put this one on top of there. This one on top of there. Is that right? It's not snapping to the top where I want it to go. Let's just turn my view. Is that looking right? Oh, that one's out of place. And this one on top of there, which means this one's in the wrong place. It looked like it was in the right place, but it wasn't. So now you can see I've got this twisted little shade cloth on top, which you saw is much easier for me to do this one than it was to do the other one that I had. Now, if we want this to have a little bit more form to it, we can use something like the split edge. Where's the split edge? Is that split? So we'll split it that way, and we'll split it that way. And then what I can do is I can grab each of these dots here, back to my first mode. I can grab that dot, and then I can move it along its edge and bring it in. And I can select this dot, and I can grab that green arrow and move that in. And by using those edges, I'm not changing the up and down of it. So if I just grab the turquoise dot and move it, there's a danger that you can move it up or down as well. So be careful of that. And there's our tent, which is pretty cool. So that's this is always my first exercise in learning to use it, because it limits what you're doing and you don't have to go too wacky with it. So that's all right so far. Is everyone happy with that so far? Let's create a square, not a cube. I'm going to create a cube object and center it next click, and there's my cube. So the cube object, if we go back to our subdivision tool, we can do the same thing. We can move that node. We've got the same dagger. We can click on the edge. We've got the same dagger. We can move the edge up and down. But now if we click on the center, we've got the same dagger. So we can move the entire thing up and down. We can move the top up and down. We can rotate the top. We can rotate the top the other way. So we can make quite a twisted shape. And then you've got all these other options. There's this one here, which is called the Crease Mode. And the Crease Mode allows you to turn one edge. You can uncrease one dot, or you can increase an edge as well. It doesn't seem to want it. Oh, there it is. So I've uncreased that, I've increased that. There it is. Oh, now it's just going nuts on me. So let's go, we'll uncrease that. I should have uncreased that edge, uncrease that edge. Let's put that back again. And so you can, so the crease, let's go back to something really simple. Okay, just a cube. Let's do the crease again. So the crease allows you to turn that into a curve. We can crease that one as well. We can crease this one, and we can crease that one. So you can see what I've done is I've actually turned that into a cylinder just by turning off the crease or creasing the edges. And if I do the other sides, I'll make it into a circle. So you made it into a circle. Now you can stop it being a circle. It's more like a bullet shape. Now it's a cylinder. And now it's back to a square. So the crease is quite handy because it allows you to curve that edge or curve that edge to get the shape you want. If we split that object, where was my split again? That one. So let's split along there, and we'll split along here. Now when I'll split this edge here, and I'll split, yeah, so it's split there. Now when I crease, you'll see I get different results. So the crease is limited by my new splits. There is so much with site modeling, or these sort of site subdivision modeling. I can't do it justice in 10 minutes or 15 minutes. But if you are interested, I did make a manual on 3D modeling, and one of the chapters is all about this. And you create a series of objects. Where's it gone? I think I've made one already. Here's one I created earlier. Those of you that live in Chicago might recognize this thing. And this is a subdivision model. And I've made it by bending it and twisting it and stretching it. And you can see that's the little object there that I created. And that one's, yeah, that one's the other one. So I'm in the middle of making these movies for this course, just to cover that topic. So Barbara, it's probably time that we wrapped up. We're nearly done. So I was just mentioning, my courses, which I haven't talked to people about. My courses are on store. Let's just go away from all that. Let me just find my course site. So if you want my courses, they're here at store.archoncad.com. I'm just updating my 3D modeling manual, but if you're new to Vectorworks, have a look at my foundation course. There's a landscape course here. Now, we looked at the 3D modeling. Let's just look at all of my courses. Now, there is there's a site modeling course, which I think is 2017. Site modeling hasn't changed. So even though it's an old course, at the moment, there's no real reason to update it. This one here, the Vectorworks site model, the techniques you learn in that are still applicable in Vectorworks 2021. So don't worry about that one not being up to date. If you want to join, so Ramon, I think you might remember this one. This is my knowledge base, and every month we get together with online sessions. I make them interactive so I can talk to people. Last week we did data visualization, which Barbara, you and I are doing that shortly, aren't we?
Yes, so we'll do it in June, so stay tuned. I think it's 9th, I could be wrong, but check again.
Yep, so we'll look at data visualization. So I've posted these for my subscribers, and this is what we've done this year. We've done all kinds of stuff. Notes manager, oh, this is what we did last year. So there's a lot of movies there that are really valuable. I'll just scroll back up to the top. So if you're interested, the knowledge base, I think it's really worthwhile. Thousands of movies in there, and we get together every month as well. So Barbara, thanks for having me.
Great. No, thank you, Jonathan. Check back with us about the data visualization webinar. And if you want to save some extra money on Vectorworks this week and buy a new license, you can save 10%. Just write down the coupon code discount VW521. And thank you all for attending. And remember to visit Novedge because we have all the support that you need. We're fast and we're reliable, and you can buy anything from A to Z, anything you need for your design workflows. Thanks again, Jonathan. That was awesome, and have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for your time.